Well, congrats again on the fundraise. Give us a sense of how you and the team got started. Like, how did you tune into this idea? What the opportunity looks like? The skill sets of the team. Just take us through that.
We've built data products for the last 2 decades, and we've solved a lot of really, really fun challenges for data in motion. But three of us have been very fascinated with this problem of, really how do you go extract value out of data? And what I really mean is, can we get more closer to metadata rather than actual data? And so, back when a couple of years ago, we were sort of brainstorming some ideas, with that sort of founding spirit that, hey, we want to go build something in the space of metadata. We had this observation that, if you look at the last 15 years or more than a couple of decades now, a ton of infrastructure has moved to the cloud. You think of apps, you think of network, who thought identity will move to the cloud, but it did. And the last foray, it's only been 6 years. We're in 2022, but if you look at 2014, modern data systems were just starting to build, Snowflake being 1.0. And the observation was, which was number two, that if the data systems move to the cloud at the pace they're moving, it's going to result in absolute sort of redesign of the tooling that was built around data, analytics, protection, security. And sort of, with that observation, what we did is we, as you would do as a bunch of engineers and product people, you would go want to talk to customers to validate, what you're thinking and if that resonates. And really that's what we did. We said, hey, pick 20 of the most strategic technical leaders when it came to some of the largest customers concerned. And we asked them a very simple question that, hey, if this data moves to the cloud, what's the worry? Or what do you worry about? Or what comes in your path? And the question kept coming about that, hey, we worry about secure data in the cloud. It's very benign if you think of it. What does securing the data in the cloud really means? And we took, multiple of those sessions to really go deep down and get clarity around what does secure data in the cloud really means. And so, it turned out simple set of 7 questions. Every CIO, every CISO, repeatedly there was a pattern that, hey, I want to understand where the data is coming from. I want to know where is it. I want to know what the nature of it is. I want to know who's accessing it. I want to know who has access to it. I want to know entitlements, and I want to know privilege. And it turned out to be those 7 problems, canonical problems of data security. And as we dug more deeper, sort of determined that, all of those problems have, great products were built over the last 2 decades to solve those problems. And they've served a great purpose. But if you really look in the world of multi-cloud and cloud native and hybrid cloud, that entire tool has to be rebuilt, and you have to rebuild from scratch.
Simply put, the question is who has access to what? And, lots of things contributed to that being a very difficult question to answer. Not the least of which, the enterprise today has islands of identity or islands of authorization, none of which talk to each other. So it really complicates how you can answer who has access to what, whether it's for compliance or hygiene or a security audit. You just take us through, why is it so hard to answer it, and, kind of what you've built to help answer that question.
If you look at that 6-word question of who has access to what is really spread as metadata across 3 different classes of systems, not 3 systems, but classes of systems. And so it really turned out to be 3 different languages one needs to really understand deeply and canonically and semantically. And unless you do, you cannot answer the question of who has access to what. Okta doesn't speak the language of AWS, and AWS doesn't speak the language of SQL Server. And until you canonicalize and normalize that, one cannot answer that question of who has access to what. Right? So that turned out to be the critical intuition. The problem is a lot more harder than we thought it would be, and partly why we kept the company in 2 years in stealth, because we wanted to build the product and the foundation pretty deep and pretty well. So
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, that's a lot of work. I think you called it the authorization metadata graph, which is pretty unique. It's a fancy way of saying how do I tie all that, how do I normalize and tie all that data together to be able to run such simple but very complex queries in terms of execution. Um, what were the breakthroughs that made it possible?
I would start by number one. There are many, many things that happened at the right time. Number one, the world truly, and when I say the world, meaning enterprise organizations truly are adopting data in the cloud. Gone are the days when people are like, hey, I want my SQL server next to my floor, right? So people really adopting data in the cloud. That was number one. Number two, you know, cloud in many ways opened the world of APIs. I think, now you can go to standard interfaces like in Cloud IAM, and you have a very well-defined set of APIs that you can talk to um, and get the information you need. So it's not closed systems of yesteryears, but very much open systems of APIs and open APIs, right? So whether it be a SharePoint, whether it be a Snowflake, whether it be AWS, I think all those systems being born in the cloud and built over the last decades were built API first in mind. Number three, uh, you use the word search, and so we built a pretty powerful concept called authorization metadata graph. But graph by itself means nothing, So you have to build apps on top of it. The first app we built was search. And if you think about search on a graph, again, learnings from companies like Google and LinkedIn is, those graph technologies, if you want to run a query which says, what does John Doe has access to with a Nike? You cannot run that on classical, columnar databases, right? Those star zone queries are really, really complicated because you're not looking for who has access to what. You're looking for who has access to what and why, at what time, right? So since those queries are a lot more complicated, you had to think about modern database technologies like graph, right? Or streaming technologies, which didn't exist 10 years ago. Just our last 10 years is where streaming and graph technologies became real. And I would say number four is identity movement to the cloud. I think that was massive for this industry. Okta, hats off to that team, moving identity to the cloud, moving AD to the cloud, really opened the horizon of organizations saying, look, I don't need to really have AD in the cloud. I can run AD in the cloud. And I think that was another, sort of massive force function, if I can use, because organizations believed in authentication in the cloud.
So you've been building for quite some time, perfecting the product, and obviously, all this isn't being done in a vacuum. Can you tell us a bit about, what kind of companies are using Veza? And we talked about the use cases, but give us a few examples of companies seeing value from Veza.
Absolutely. No, I think that's at the end of the day, that's all that's all it matters. You solve really true customer pain points. So, been very lucky. Another reason why we wanted to keep the company in stealth is, it takes you a good year to build a great, phenomenal, rich enterprise product, MVP. I'm not talking about a year-old architecture. It takes a year to solve hard problems. And then you want to take that and put it in the front of first 20, 30, 40, 50 customers because you want to understand repeatable patterns. And so, to name some of the organizations, we've been very lucky and grateful, for them to believe in this team and this product. Think of customers in sort of two buckets. One is your traditional Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. Think of organizations like AMD and Wynn Resorts and Medtronic and many, many others, world's largest consumer financial, Fortune 500. But also emerging, what we call as commercial mid-market organizations like Robinhood and SoFi.
So what do you see the next 18 to 24 months looking like for you? What are your hopes for the company?
I think that's, Karim, a question that sort of is really the North Star, for any leadership team, any founder. So thanks for asking, sort of what the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months look like. I would say, look, when we started the company, three of us really started the company that we want to build what we use internally till today, an enduring company, one that goes beyond founder lifetimes. And so, that was the true north, that is the true north, that will be the true north. That could we really go create something that could, that could really create a dent in this industry, right? We're, learning from phenomenal organizations and what teams have been able to produce, where you can actually create a dent and leave a legacy, right? So that was really always the goal. But if you want to go do that, it is a fundamental tenet of creating an enduring organization is growth. And can you create a high pace, fast growth organization where you can, get to that escape velocity, right? Is something that I truly, deeply believe in. So, with that said, sort of really the things that we think about over the next, 12, 18, 24 months are rooted, and again, on power of threes. Number one, phenomenal team in place, A++ star talent across all the functions and departments, and really want to go hire the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people. We're 70 today, and want to build the team out to about 250 people by the end of next year. When it comes to growth, you have to think of unnatural things. You have to think of unnatural acts. And one of the big unnatural acts we're building something called bimodal go-to-market. And bimodal go-to-market means you build an enterprise sales machine, but you also build a free trial-led, product qualified-led sales funnel. It's very hard to do. But that's something that we have put that DNA in the second year of this company, because we've been practicing that muscle for the last 9 to 12 months. So that's number two, really to get that bimodal go-to-market team come to reality. That will be the next big milestone for this company, because if you can, the growth will come automatically. I believe results don't matter, activity matters. Activity produces results. Number three is as we think of sort of the milestones for the company, and really where we're focused on is bring this team together. We have not met 70 people, not come together in a single room, in a single conference room, in a single building. And so really the next frontier is bring this team back together, where people can get the feeling of being with each other and that camaraderie that is needed to keep that velocity and collaborative spirit. So that'll be the next thing we'll be working on. But first and foremost is win the hearts and minds of customers. And that is all about execution from here on.